friends, welcome to episode 3 of Hello Friends, the Mr. Robot Show. If this is your third episode, thank you very much for sticking by or sticking with me. I just got a new iPhone, so I'm hoping that this will improve the audio quality. If it's not a lot better after this, then I'm going to go ahead and buy a microphone. But we'll see. We'll kind of see what this turns out with. If you're new, welcome. My name is Kyle. I am part of Project Potter, my little channel here. This is a Mr. Robot and review show. So what I'm going to do is go through each episode of Mr. Robot, and we're going to review it. And I'm going to kind of go through my own personal thoughts of the big moments, the big shots, what I thought was great. Most of the show is going to be a review, but I'm going to give it a score at the end, an award for the best performance acting. If you know the deal, this is your third go around. Thank you to everyone who's joining me. I really appreciate your support. This has been kind of a dream of mine to make content, so Mr. Robot is one of my favorite shows. I'm really glad that I can kind of share that passion with anyone else that enjoys this video. All right, so without further ado, we're going to go into episode 3 of Mr. Robot, which I call The Perfect Maze. And so our first segment here is called The Plot is an Illusion. Anyone familiar with the first 2 episodes will know. This is going to be the heart of the show, where I'm going to go through and review pretty much the entire episode. So here we go. All right, so episode 3 of season 1. And so the episode starts, it's a slow fade from black, opening to a shot of a crosswalk in the city. With Tyrell Wellick speaking to the audience, similar to Elliot, what he's been doing the first few episodes. And then eventually we see a shirtless Tyrell running towards the camera here. And at the end of the shot, he runs past the camera, clearly doing a workout or a jog here. And then we get a montage of Tyrell Wellick working out, doing some push-ups, really getting yoked. And he's practicing his speech in his house. Here, and as Tyrell mentioned last episode, he wants to be the next CTO, so he's really determined. This episode is going to focus a lot on Tyrell Wellick, played by Martin Wallstrom, who does an excellent job, and it gives you a good look into Tyrell and how he's sort of power hungry and obsessed with titles and positions and kind of that he's a corporate slave, really. So that's going to be a really good look into his psyche in this episode. So Tyrell is kind of at home practicing his speech. He's tightening his tie, and he's in front of a mirror practicing. Anyone who's done like a job interview or gone for a big position, they'll know that. Tyrell mentions here EvilCorp has 73 hacker vulnerabilities, and then there's a great cut between Tyrell getting dressed and an extreme close-up of his face, which he gets center shot here, and he's kind of going through the speech over and over again, and every time he messes up, he slaps himself really hard, which is like kind of a great cut to his intensity and kind of what he's all about there. And so you get this montage of him doing it over and over again, and he's been doing kind of that speech over and over to perfect it for an upcoming interview he's got, or a meeting. And so we get this shot here where Tyrell talks to the camera, and he says, warm it up, don't be a cold robot, which was a nice little touch there. Obviously kind of a play on words from the show Mr. Robot. Great job by Sam Esmail for some text in there. And he says, now is not the time to be encumbered by the company's tragic and shameful loss of our chief technology officer. He says, we have to be swift in naming a replacement. And sir, I'd like to suggest it be me. And Tyrell's feeling good. He's feeling himself. He's got the tie. He's feeling really confident. He thinks he's the best candidate for the job. Anyone that's kind of gone for a job interview, they're going to psych themselves up. They're going to be feeling really good. Kind of the same situation here, except Tyrell really obsessed with power. We'll kind of dive into that in a little bit here. So I mentioned he's kind of slapping himself every time he messes up the speech, which is a nice touch here. Kind of an egomaniac, that we'll go into that. And so really good score here, kind of like a techno beat, kind of techno vibe. every time he slaps himself, the beat kind of picks up. It's a really nice touch, really cool, kind of a hype moment here. I like this part of Mr. Robot. And so eventually we get to the receptionist for the lobby, and Tyrell's sitting there, and he's got a very straight posture. He's sitting up. He's very confident. And there's a line he repeats a couple times. He says, I will be the next CTO of this company. I will be the next CTO of this company. He's kind of saying it out loud to reinforce the idea, kind of getting into his head here. So that's really cool. And so there's a really funny bit here where he's in the lobby, and the front desk receptionist just asks him, he's like, you sure you don't want anything? He says, Pellegrino, tea, anything? Tyrell's just very focused, and he kind of ignores him. Eventually we get Philip Price walking in, and Philip Price, the current, I think he's the current CTO. Fact check me. Sorry, I didn't fact check that before the episode. But Philip Price, first time we see him in the series, played by Michael Christopher. And Michael Christopher does a great job of playing Philip Price. He's going to be a really nice character throughout the series here. And Tyrell's all hyped up for the meeting. He's excited. And then Philip Price comes over, and he says, he shakes his hand, and he says, Tyrell, I'm going to have to reschedule this. Pretty much dismissing him immediately, just telling him, I got bigger fish to fry here. And Tyrell, who's very confident, he's ready to make an impression. He comes over, he buttons his suit jacket. He immediately kind of has that half smile on his face, and he just slowly diminishes. Philip Price is like, I got other things to do. Philip Price actually tells him here, we got a really good CTO candidate we're really excited about, which almost immediately eliminates Tyrell from being the CTO. And so he's kind of just like, oh, you got another candidate? Okay. And he just gives this half smile. Really good acting by Martin Wallstrom here to kind of convey that disappointment that Tyrell's feeling. And so Philip Price says, we're going to loop you in the next couple of weeks. Just give us some time. So he's almost putting Tyrell on the back burner here. When Tyrell thinks he's going to step in and take that role, Philip Price is telling him, we'll keep you updated, but it's not going to be you, essentially. And so we cut to Tyrell in the car, or in his SUV, just completely dejected. He's got no smile. He's sad. He's pissed off. And the car stops in a bad neighborhood. And this is where it kind of stops under a bridge, and we get Tyrell stepping out of the car, talking to what appears to be a homeless man or a bum. Just a guy down on his luck, you may say. It's a nice way to put it. And Tyrell laughs, and he goes up to the bum, and the bum says, you think I can have $300 this time? So obviously this has happened before. We don't know what's about to happen, but this has been a clear arrangement that's been going on there. And so Tyrell doesn't really respond to him. He just kind of, I'm sorry. He does say, spoken like a real capitalist. And he kind of just laughs him off. Whether or not he gives him $300, I'm not really sure. He does take some money out of his wallet. But what he does, Tyrell goes over, he takes off his jacket, his suit jacket, rolls up his sleeves a little bit. And it's clear that, something's going to go down. He's going to, fight this guy or something. And then what ensues is Tyrell ends up beating the shit out of this guy. Just beats the fuck out of this homeless guy. And it's very clear he's taking out some aggression, some anger, and it's very clear that this homeless guy or guy, he's got nothing really going for him. Obviously, he's taking a beating for money. It gets to a point where Tyrell is kicking him, punching him, and he's on the ground, and he says, no more, no more. Really great shot here of kind of a shot from the bottom where it's looking up at Tyrell, and his hair, it's usually all neat and tucked back. His hair is kind of hanging in front of his head. And, it's a very messed up, very animalistic type of shot where he's looking over him, and he's sweaty, and he's breathing heavy, and he just kind of, you can tell he's kind of lost control there. Of course, which is going to be a theme. Control is an illusion. In this scene, control is an illusion for Tyrell. He's acting like a maniac because he missed out on a job. So, and for anyone asking here, episode 3, the beer is back. We didn't do beer for episode 2, but the people spoke, okay? I'm a man of the people. F society. Some people say fuck society. I say, the people are looking to speak up, and they said beer is the way to go. So it's going to help here. It's probably going to make for a more entertaining podcast. If you don't like the beer, well, Prohibition happened a while ago. So that's my opinion on that. All right, so after this scene where Tyrell beats the shit out of this homeless guy, he gets back in the car, kind of collects himself, puts his hair back, gets his suit back on. Now his guys are watching. They kind of look away in disgust, but this has happened before. They know not to step in. Tyrell gets back in the car. The SUV pulls away, and we get the Mr. Robot title shot. Boom! Another great shot. Amazing font. This font right here, Mr. Robot shot. Amazing job by Sam Esmail. Every title shot, even though it's just kind of overlaying, under a bridge or something simple, always impressive, always great. Love the artwork there. So after Tyrell kind of has his little episode there, what we do is cut to Elliot, our friend Elliot, and he's talking to the audience, and he's talking about coders finding a bug or debugging, and he says it's not about finding the bug, it's an understanding about why the bug was there to begin with. And this will become a theme, we'll see. But he says its existence was no accident. And he says, like an unconscious bubble floating to the surface. And then we cut to a hospital bed. If you remember last episode, the end of the episode, Mr. Robot pushed Elliot off of the balcony. We thought either very seriously injured Elliot or kill Elliot. Obviously, Elliot's not dead. He's the main star of the show, so there's a lot more episodes to go. But Elliot's dealing with kind of the repercussion of this, where he's cut up. We cut to the hospital bed. He's got a huge bandage over his eye. He's got some bruising. He's obviously seriously injured, and he's kind of dealing with the fallout of that. And so we're in the hospital bed. Elliot states he never thought he'd wake up to find these two women staring back at him. And then we get a cut to Krista and Shayla across from him. Shayla asks, "Are you awake?" And then Elliot goes, "I don't know," which is kind of a weird response because you're either awake or you're not awake. And so obviously this has deeper meaning. Anyone who's seen the show already, that's a big line, and rewatching it, really cool little bit that Sam put in there that will mean more going forward. But Elliot says, "I don't know," when he knows you're awake. Clearly he's conscious in this shot. It's future spoilers, we'll go into that in a bit. I don't want to speak too much of that, but interesting response there from Elliot. And so Shayla eventually leaves the room, and Krista asks Elliot if she remembers him requesting her to come visit via the hospital staff. Elliot says no. And then Elliot reveals to Krista that he's been taking morphine again. And he says he doesn't have a good enough reason why. He doesn't have an excuse why he's taking morphine. He knows he shouldn't be, but his therapist is there, and he's kind of revealing to Krista that he's been doing it. Krista asks Elliot to voluntarily submit to a bi-monthly drug test. She says that's the only way she's going to submit for a release from the hospital. And then we get the Mr. Robot music, and Elliot's kind of talking to us, the audience. And he says, hospitals are easy to hack. He says he hacked Elliot Highsmith, and it's got this picture of a nice old white guy. And he says not only is he the head of IT, he is the IT department. And so then he says he's also an idiot. And so Elliot notes that he hacked him. He's making $7,000 a year, which is just an astoundingly low number. I mean, I don't make, I'm not on the high end, but of payment there. But I mean, $7,000 a year is absolutely nothing. So that was interesting, almost like a part-time job. And he says he's running security software that runs on Windows 98. Anyone who's done Windows 98, shout out. Windows 98 grew up on that. Okay, dial-up LAN. Got the yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Don't hate on Windows 98. We had to start somewhere, And so we got Elliot saying he can make his health records look like every other obedient zombie out there, which is a little interesting bit. Kind of saying that we as a society are conforming to, we take these medical tests, we get the results, we kind of just sure, I tested positive, I tested negative. We're almost confiding in the, not confiding, but really succumbing to those results. We're kind of just going off of someone else's tests there. I'm not saying that the medical profession is not valid or anything like that, but him calling society an obedient zombie, I think was pretty interesting. And then we have an immediate cut. Elliot tells Krista, he says, don't worry, I'm not going to do morphine anymore. Then we have an immediate cut, similar to last episode where he's telling Shayla he's not going to do morphine, where Elliot is doing morphine, again, in a ramen aisle in a convenience store with Shayla, who's at the front desk. And Elliot goes to pay for 6 Hour Energy, which is a nice little bit there with Shayla. And then the clerk tells him, no credit cards right now, due to the hack, the Evil Corp app. We get a great shot over to, there's a giant Evil Corp hack there. And Elliot's got to use cash. I never have cash on me, so to me, I always use my debit card for everything. So I hate having cash. So if this happened to me, it's an inconvenience to go and get cash, but just a cool little bit here where it tells you that if we were to have we do have a pandemic right now, but if we were to have a hack like that where you couldn't use credit cards or debit cards, I think a lot of people would be in a really unfortunate situation, or you're just causing inconvenience where you'd have to go to the bank to get cash or do this and that. And a lot of us, I think, like myself, rely on debit cards or credit cards to pay for things. So that would be an interesting world to live in. So Elliot's kind of like all right, I'll give you cash. So they're walking back. They get to Shayla's door. Shayla asks him, did you do anything with Vera getting busted? There's murder charges out there. Elliot just doesn't respond, and immediately she knows, Elliot, I told you not to do anything. Like, she knows even without him responding that he's kind of responsible for this. So Shayla asks what's going on there. And then they walk in. What's going on with your door? And his door is broken in. They walk into Elliot's apartment. And they live right next to each other. And Elliot finds Darlene again in his apartment. Last episode, she was in the shower where she said, I'm naked, you asshole. And then this time, she's just chilling on his couch. I think she's smoking something. I'm not sure. But she's hanging out in his apartment like it's her own apartment. So, they kind of go on. Elliot gives her kind of a confrontation where he says, you need to get out. You need to get out. He wants to hang out with Shayla. And then Darlene goes to Shayla, hey, sweetheart, why don't you leave? We got a lot to talk about. We got a lot of shit to talk about, me and Elliot. And Elliot's like, no, you need to leave. And he's really putting his foot down here. And then eventually he gets Darlene to leave. And then right before she leaves, she says, you really need to I suggest you get a grip. And we're kind of wondering what that means, but obviously Darlene knows something that we don't. Darlene leaves, it's just him and Shayla, and then we cut to a montage of Elliot, where he says, a bug is never just a mistake, it represents something bigger, an error of thinking. And then we go to the street, where we have a guy running and Angela chasing, or kind of she's got her AirPods or headphones in there, she's going for a run, and someone drops the wallet. But he keeps running, and then Angela picks it up, and she goes, sir, you lost your wallet. And she runs up, and she gives it to the guy, and he smiles, and he says, thanks. And it turns out the lady right behind Angela is like, hey, you gave that guy my wallet. That was my wallet. That guy's a thief. And she's like, oh, I was just trying to do the right thing. I didn't know that guy was a thief. And so just kind of an unfortunate scene here where Angela's kind of like, she thought she was doing a nice thing, and it turns out she was helping the thief. Just a nice little segment there. So then we go to Angela and Ollie's apartment, where Ollie's on the phone arguing with Stella B, the girl he's cheating with Angela on because he's a piece of shit. And he's revealing that his computer's been hacked, and there's a nice montage of him kind of clicking over the nudes or the leaked images of Stella. And he says, he's being blackmailed, and that he's got to hack AllSafe, where they're going to release everything. And then Angela walks in and immediately hangs up the phone like a scumbag, like a douchebag, because he's a piece of shit. And then he goes, hey, babe, like, what's going on? Like, nothing, like, he wasn't just talking to the girl he's cheating with on the phone, and he immediately, like, awkwardly hangs up the phone. and then like closes all his windows on his fucking computer. Like Angela's not gonna notice that. And so Angela walks in, she starts telling her story. She's like, the weirdest thing happened. She's like, I tried to return this wallet. She starts telling the wallet story, and Ollie cuts her off, and he goes, you're too good of a person. And he goes, almost to a fault. And she's like, what does that mean? And then Ollie's phone goes off. He kind of, her eyes dart to it, and his eyes kind of dart to it. He kind of quickly dismisses it, which is sketchy. And then he goes, you're just too good for the world. And good acting by Ben Rappaport here, but like Ollie's character is such an asshole, such a piece of shit, where it's like very clearly he's like giving these like bullshit excuses, like these lame excuses. And Angela's, it's nice because Angela's starting to kind of be like, like kind of put some doubt in there. And so Ollie is like, I love you, and Angela's like, I'm gonna hop in the shower, because she's not really feeling it, and she can tell something's up. And so right after she closes the door to the bathroom, Ollie gets a call from the Dark Army, and it's using a voice changer, and he says, you have 100 hours precisely. After that, everything we own will be released. And then the hacker who gave him the CD is kind of typing to the Dark Army, where he's in like the library or the hidden basement. I don't know where he is. And he says he'll break soon in Chinese. And so that's the message to the Dark Army, who this hacker is clearly working with, and trying to get Ollie to break and trying to get them to hack Allsafe, which we'll find out more about. But then we get a cut to Gideon's office. Really cool lighting here. I'm going to put this at the end. I really like the kind of light pouring in. We have Elliot on the left-hand side. We have Angela, Ollie. It's just a really cool shot with Gideon kind of standing there above his chair, and the lighting coming in. Really good shot that I liked. So Gideon basically is inviting them to dinner, and it's Angela, Lloyd, Elliot, Ollie, and Gideon. I hope I didn't miss anyone there. But he says, I'd like you all to come to dinner tonight. Elliot says, he's got plans. And Elliot says, can I have the room? And everyone leaves. And it's just it's just Gideon and Elliot. And Gideon kind of confronts Elliot, and he says, you're missing work. You look like that. He's got bruises on his head. And he's like, you don't expect me to ask questions? And Elliot's kind of sitting there, like, doesn't know what to say. And then Gideon says, I don't know how much you want me to ask about your personal life, but... And then Elliot goes, well, not at all, actually. And he goes, I don't mean to be rude, I'm just being honest. And he just kind of awkwardly sends himself out, and Gideon's kind of taken aback by how rude he is. But Elliot is just bluntly awkward, or bluntly direct, and just kind of, he's just saying, I don't want to know you at all, Gideon. So he's kind of keeping his barrier, keeping his distance there. And so he leaves, and so we get a sequence of of Elliot talking to the audience, and he says, Mr. Robot may have found Evil Corpse Bug, but he didn't find mine. Elliot's kind of walking back to his desk, and he says, that's the only way to protect myself. Never show them my source code, which is a nice little play on words there for all the computer nerds out there, all the hackers. And he says, I'm going to close myself off, create my cold, perfect maze where no one can ever find me. Again, anyone who's rewatched the show, that's leading to bigger implications there. For now, it's just a cool little bit of play on words. We're going to get into that as the episodes go on. And then we get this awesome cut of Elliot walking back to his desk, and Mr. Robot is sitting there at Elliot's desk, chilling like he owns the place. And so the first line Mr. Robot says, Christian Slater says of this episode, he says, Elliot, I cannot believe you work here. This place is a shithole, which is a nice bit of comedy there. He makes a comment about a hot redhead walking by, looking at her ass, and he says, I'm just trying to be a good wingman. And he's like, that's nice. And then he says, you know what, I'm going to make a scene, or you can meet me in the bar next door. Either way, I'm going to have a good time. And so we cut to the bar next door, and then we get this great shot of Mr. Robot drinking an apple teeny with Elliot, and they're sitting there, and he's like, you should order something. and Elliot, and he's like, I really recommend the Appletini. And Elliot goes, all right. And then he says, I'll have one Appletini. And the guy's like, it's going to be $12. I'm like, damn, it's an expensive Appletini, but I bet it's delicious. So the bartender brings him a drink. They're talking. And Elliot just chugs the Appletini, which is a good bit. And Mr. Robot's like, I don't think you really enjoyed that. He's like, the key is to sip it. And Elliot cuts him off and he says, what about the plan? He says, I'm sorry, this is when they're leaving the bar at the end. He's about to walk out, and it's Elliot and Mr. Robot in front of the exit. And he says, what about the plan? What's going on next with the plan? And Mr. Robot says, the plan? He goes, you're the key to the whole plan. He says, without you, there is no plan. Really cool bit, and Elliot is kind of taken aback by that. And he goes, oh, it's just over? He goes, you expect me to believe that? And Mr. Robot looks at him and he goes, see another life, which bigger implications, but again, we're gonna hold off on that for any first-time watchers. So then we cut to Aliens. Jesus, sorry, I've only had a couple beers, but apparently it's getting to me. All right, so we got Elliot talking to the audience, or us. He claims F Society is finally over. There's an amazing montage, one of my favorite montages of the show, where we got Steal My Sunshine playing. And he goes, I'll re-seclude myself, my otherwise neat reality I created over the years. And then there's an interesting bit here where he says, I'll never slip up like that again. And he says, I'm gonna be more normal now. And he says, I'll make Shayla my girlfriend. I will go see those stupid Marvel movies. Sam, I take offense to that because the MCU is one of my favorite things. Probably going to be doing an MCU in review here. Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man, the best. So MCU movies, near and dear to my heart. But a little funny bit there. I'm going to go see those stupid Marvel movies. Obviously very successful movies. He says, I'm going to join a gym. There's an awesome shot of this model just giving a great smile in the gym. And he says, I'm going to heart stuff on Instagram and then drink vanilla lattes. And there's this amazing shot where it's him walking in the street just drinking a vanilla latte, a bunch of people around. I don't know what's so good about this shot, but it's just perfect the way it's laid out. Really awesome shot here. He says, I'm going to lead a bug-free life now on, and he says, protect my perfect maze. Big point there. Keep in mind of that for future reference. And so Elliot's very calm. He's very relaxed. He walks into Gideon's office. And he says, hey, is that dinner still on for tonight? And Gideon's like, he just blew him off before. This is presumably the same day. And he goes, yeah, you still want to come? And he's like, yeah. And then he goes, can I bring my girlfriend? And he goes, oh. Gideon goes, you have a girlfriend? And he goes, I haven't asked her yet, but, hoping she says yes. And Gideon's like, all right. And then Elliot walks away. He goes, cool. And he walks away in a good mood. And Gideon, really funny scene here where Elliot walks away. Gideon opens his door to his desk, his office. And he talks to the receptionist and he goes, was he drinking Starbucks? So really good. He's like, what the hell's going on here? All right, so we get a quick shot of Ollie contemplating. He's at Allsafe. He's contemplating burning the CD into the Allsafe computer, which he's been blackmailed into doing. And Angela walks over and he just awkwardly he frantically puts the CD into that bag, or back into his bag, he's contemplating it, staring at a really cool shot of just the camera panning at the CD and then just Angela. And she's like, oh, you're still trying to burn that CD? And he's like, oh, yeah, it's no big deal. Definitely not going to hack into Allsafe. Doesn't want to tell Angela about the plan here. Puts it back in his bag. They walk away. So we cut to Tyrell here, standing in his closet. He's looking at an Instagram post of a guy he's going to go stalk and manipulate, as we'll see in a bit here, going to a club, kind of posting the Instagram where he is. And then we get the first shot of pregnant Joanna Wellick, who is played by the gorgeous Stephanie Corneliusson, if I'm saying that right. Probably not. She's gorgeous. She's in the show. Love her as a character. Elliot's wife, she's her first appearance here. She asks him another language. I'm not sure what language this is, but they're speaking another language. She says, where are you going? It's late at night. And he goes, work. And she goes, is it necessary? And he goes, it's always necessary, or it's necessary for me. And she goes, he says, everything I do it for us. And she goes, for us or for you? And he kind of violently grabs her, or aggressively grabs her neck, kisses her, and he says, everything I do, he says, us is me. And so basically saying everything he does for them. But really he's very egotistical, which we'll see. So we cut to Elliot and Shayla's apartment, where Elliot is casually asking her to be his girlfriend. He's kind of sitting there, all casual. He's in a good mood. He's kind of let everything go. And Shayla's like, are you serious? She's like, you're just asking me out right now? She's like, you don't know anything about me. And Elliot's like, I like to know. And there's kind of a nice little scene here, where, Shayla's like, I don't know. She's like, you know me, but she's like, you don't know, not the internet shit. Because there's a montage of Elliot talking to us, the audience, and he says, of course I know Shayla. I know everything about her. And he says, I hacked her as soon as she moved in next door. Kind of a creepy move. Really creepy move by Elliot here. But he's a hacker, so that's kind of his MO. And Shayla interrupts him, and she's like, no, I'm not talking about the internet shit. I'm talking about the real me. And then there's a kind of a nice moment where she brings out a blanket that she wove over, that she created here. And she's like, I never posted to social media, because Elliot starts to be like, I've never seen this on social media. And Elliot says to us, she's got her own private maze too, which is a nice little moment of them bonding. And he goes, Shayla's bug was always elusive to me. Maybe this is it, wanting normalcy but stuck in the outer fringes. So really similar to Elliot, where he doesn't know how to be normal. He can't really interact with people normally. He's kind of an outsider. And he says, not knowing how to participate, just like me. Then they kiss, which is a nice moment. And then he says, the bug's only purpose, its only reason, to be a mistake that needs fixing. And then we cut to Tyrell waiting outside very intentionally of a gay bar, where I don't know if this is the next CTO candidate or if this is just a guy LinkedIn, but he's very clearly the guy who's talking on the phone before on Instagram. He knows he's going to be there. Obviously very intentionally waiting outside of a club. Just being like, oh, I didn't see you there. The guy walks out of the club and he notices Tyrell. And then he's kind of hitting on him, trying to get with him. Very clearly, we don't think Tyrell's gay at this point, but he's doing whatever it takes for work. In this case, we're going to find out sleeping with another man for work. He's very serious about his work. This just drives along the point that, Tyrell is obsessed with power, and he'll do anything it takes to get that power, including sleeping with another man. So he doesn't care. He'll do whatever it takes. All right, so now we cut to a great shot of a dinner party. Gideon's dinner party with kind of pairs here. So we have Ollie and Angela. We have Lloyd, who shows up alone. And then we have Elliot with his new girlfriend, Shayla. And it's really cool because there's like this really awkward dynamic between them. And then Lloyd shows up at the last second in his suit. And they're like, dude, why are you wearing a suit? And he's like, I don't know. I just thought it was a nice occasion. Lloyd is an awesome character. He's the comedic relief here. And so we cut to the scene where they're inside. They have a really cool like sliding door, almost like looks like a dungeon. I don't know how they have that set up. Super cool apartment. Props to Gideon and his partner because they crushed it. So they get inside and they're in the apartment and they're doing the dinner. And Gideon's partner is kind of like getting to know them, and he's like, he talks to Ollie and Angela first. How long have you guys been together? And it's a really cool scene because Ollie and Angela speak at the same time, and Ollie says 2.5 years, and Angela says 2 years. And so it's just a little moment, but even Angela just taking off that half year just shows that she's starting to distance herself and kind of question this relationship already, because obviously the couple should know, we started talking then, or we started talking on this date, or, whatever it may be, we've been together for this long. That should be the same answer. Really good job of Sam Esmail showing the rift building between them two and the distrust. And then he goes, okay, it's kind of an awkward moment. He goes, okay. And then he goes, Elliot, Shayla, how long have you guys been together? And he goes, just today, actually. And they go, oh, okay. It's a good, it's just a ridiculous situation. And so Gideon calls Elliot out to the grill and he says, hey, I need your help with something. And so Gideon then reveals to Elliot outside, away from the other guests, that he was kind of suspicious of Elliot, and he had kind of an investigation into Elliot to see if he messed with the data or why he didn't tell him about the data or the data file. And he says, they found nothing wrong. I'm so sorry I ever suspected anything. And then there's a great scene where Elliot's talking to the audience. He goes, shit, I have to let him hug me, don't I? And Gideon goes in and he hugs him. And it's a really nice, awkward moment because Gideon is really caring and loving. And Elliot's just standing there. And Gideon says, I really care about you. You don't have to hide things from me. That's kind of a nice thing from a boss to an employee. Shows how caring Gideon is. And so then we cut to back inside the party. Great shot of Angela and Elliot talking kind of at the doorstep about their childhood. I'm going to put this in, tell me you're seeing this too, because really cool cinematography here, really nice. Elliot, there's a little spiel about Elliot saying, I can get used to this normal life. He goes, dinner parties, awkward conversations, growing up together. He's like, I could get used to this. I could even like it. And so Elliot gets a text or a notification, and suddenly he gets up and he's kind of alarmed. And then Angela's like, what's wrong? And he goes over to the TV, immediately turns on the TV. And we get the news where it's revealed that Terry Colby was involved in the 1993 toxic waste scandal, where 26 employees died. And that's how Angela's mom and Elliot's dad died. And so this is kind of big, shocking news. And Elliot says, my perfect maze, to the audience, I'm sorry, my perfect maze crumbling before my eyes. And he goes, there's nothing to hide behind. Mr. Robot finally found my bug. And Elliot and Angela kind of freak out and leave. They leave the party. Everyone's kind of like, what's going on? And then we cut to a bench with a young, almost a flashback in time here, with a young hooded Elliot and his mother. And his mom is saying, talking about their dad. Her husband, his dad. She says he did this to himself. He gave in. He was a coward. She's very cold, very this isn't your fault. And then Elliot says, the bug forces the software to adapt, to change, become the next version. And there's a really cool scene of the mother and young Elliot. And young Elliot's kind of asking her, why aren't you sad? He died. And, she's kind of cold-hearted. She's like, he was a coward. He was nothing. Kind of strange for a wife to be doing that. But there's the bench shot of the mother and Elliot. And then the bus pulls up, and what's really cool is Elliot says, the next version, become the next version. The bus pulls away, and then it's full-grown Elliot, hooded Elliot on the same bench, which was a nice touch. And then we get a hard cut to Tyrell having sex with the guy from the club. And then he goes in the shower, and then this is when Tyrell actually hacks his phone. He puts a SIM card in there and hacks his phone. I don't know if he's getting information from here or what's happening, but basically Tyrell finds out who the next CTO is going to be, and so he's using him for information. We cut to Angela, who's coming home. She's like, and Ollie's kind of agitated at home. She says, I'm so sorry, I went running off for Elliot, but he wasn't home. And Ollie's very confrontational in the scene. Ollie says, I got something, what if I want to talk? What if I want to talk? And he's very agitated about something. Eventually he spills the beans, tells her all about it, about how he's cheating with Stella, about how he's being blackmailed. He doesn't know what to do. He's freaking out. And so there's a great shot of Angela very intently staring at the screen. And Ollie's he's like, I love you. I love you. I want to be with you. And she's like, stop speaking. She's dismissing him, which is great. because she's not even really hurt by the breakup because she was kind of distancing. She's kind of just like, shut up, idiot. Like, I'm trying to figure this out. I'm trying to figure out this hack. And so they talk about, should we hack Allsave? What should we do? I don't know what to do. We're running out of time. They're going to leak everything. Angela reveals that the Dark Army has her bank account, her dad's bank account. She's like, this is going to screw me over if we don't do it. And Ollie goes, if I do this, I'm going to lose my job. And she goes, and there it is. And she says, he always only thinking about him. He's never thinking about Angela. I mean, they have Angela's personal bank account and her dad's bank account. Ollie's just concerned about his job, which, not a terrible thing. Not a terrible thing to be concerned about. I don't blame him. But Angela's like, dude, there are bigger things at risk here. So then we cut to Gideon back in the office. And so he is thinking about the hack and the results that were found, and he's got Elliot's name on a piece of paper, and he's contemplating, and then he calls the company running the investigation of the servers again, and he's like, yeah, I need to speak with, I don't know if I put the name down here. Anyway, the rep that he was talking to, and he's like, I need to talk about the hack again. And so he's kind of being suspicious of Elliot again after this news broke. So he's not totally sure of Elliot at this point. Then we get a cut to Tyrell returning home with his wife. He just had sex with this guy, so obviously he's very physically exhausted, and he's kind of like, I'm not in the mood. And she asked Tyrell, get the red ones. And so he brings the ties out, starts tying her to the bed. Obviously this has happened before because she says, the red ones, and he's like, I don't want to do this. I'm not into it. When he comes home, she's just in lingerie, just laying on the bed, and he's just not feeling it. That kind of shows a rift as well. That's kind of a theme. You see the Angela and Ollie rift. You also see the Tyrell and Joanna rift. Tyrell is more concerned with business than he is with his wife. And he's an idiot because she's freaking gorgeous. So, all right. So we get, they're kind of talking business. Obviously this almost feels like a partnership, but he's tying her up and they're kind of talking, and he says, did you make progress? Or how did you do? And he goes, progress. And then she goes, oh, so failure. And he's like, since when is progress a failure? And he's tying her to the bed, and he's like, I found out who the next CTO candidate is going to be. It's going to be this guy named Scott Knowles. And he's like, we should have dinner with them as soon as possible. And she's like, she says we should have dinner with them as soon as possible. And he goes, isn't that obvious? Isn't that going to be too obvious? And she's like, no, that'll be fine. And so then we cut to Elliot towards the end of the episode here. He walks into the F Society headquarters. There's no words spoken, but everyone's kind of looking at him and they're kind of smiling. Elliot kind of clears the space, puts his laptop down, and then everyone's smiling at him, and he goes, here's the plan. And there's this awesome shot in front of Elliot and then the members around him. End credits, boom, end of episode 3. Things are starting to pick up a little bit. Some more seeds in here, but really good episode. I think I liked it a little bit more than episode 2. So, that's episode 3. So first score here, I'm going to give it an 8.7. I think this is a good episode. Certainly not an all-time, but stronger, closer to the pilot than it was episode 2. So I'm going to give it an 8.7. There's some awesome sequences here. A great opening sequence with Tyrell. Amazing sequence. We get Mr. Robot revealing to Elliot that he's the key to all of this, which is a big thing. We get an incredible Steal My Sunshine montage where Elliot's walking around with the Starbucks, telling him what he's going to do. We get Angela starting to stand up for herself from Ollie, and just in general. And we get Elliot's triumphant return or commitment to F Society at the end. So some really big points here. 8.7 I'm going to go with. So a really strong episode, I would say. Better than episode 2 for sure. The White Rose Award, I'm going to give this one to Martin Wallstrom, Tyrell Wellick. This episode really is all about Tyrell. It's the first kind of dive into Tyrell's madness and his obsession with power that we see. Martin Wallstrom just crushes it as Tyrell Wellick. Tyrell is one of my favorite characters in the whole series, so that will go forward. But yeah, he's just awesome. He commands the screen every time. Just really great acting. I thought he was the one that stood out the most in this episode. Rami Malek, always great as Elliot, but I just thought Tyrell was a little bit better in this episode. So tell me you're seeing this too. We're going to have about 10 shots here. Really, really cool. A lot of really cool sequences in here. So we'll have those here at the end. And that just about does it. So again, thank you for watching. This has been episode 3 of Mr. Robot. I'm hoping this will solve some audio issues. Again, I got a new iPhone, just recording off of that for now. If I review this and if this doesn't significantly improve the quality, I'll probably end up getting a microphone. So if you're sticking with me, please stick with me, bear with me. If nothing else, episode 4 or 5, I'll have the microphone on there. That will solve the issue if this isn't a lot louder. Hopefully this will resolve the issue. I had an iPhone 6 before, so really upgraded there. But yeah, again, thank you for watching. Check out my Patreon page, Project Potter. My YouTube channel, Project Potter. Again, I'm going to be doing an episode and review for each one of these. We're about at 46 minutes right now. These are about 46, 50 minutes. It's going to be an in-depth review. So thank you for joining me. I appreciate any support that you're giving me. Really love all the nice comments. I've seen some really nice comments already. So hopefully these will only get better as we go. I'll get more comfortable. But until next time, goodbye, friend.